Yeah, shout out to Others Inc. for recommending this topic, but let's talk about Killzone Shadowfall. It's not 60. It's not 60 frames per second. It's not at 1080p. So gamers are pissed. It's apparently the multiplayer aspect of this. So gamers are pissed. Is it really important? Like, should we even really be caring about this? I know already a couple games have gone flat. Specifically, some three Xbox One games have gone flat about what is it, the different resolution and whatnot, and the frames per second. Gary, should people care about this? The common person.
Uh, Unless you're a PC gamer, you shouldn't care about this, in my opinion. I mean, the game is still 1080p, and in single player it's 1080p, 60 frames from what I understand. It's just that the multiplayer dips from time to time, and that's because you have loads of players on screen. So, me personally, I don't see why people would complain about that. I mean, it's not a PC, so it is a console game, and it's a first generation console game. Like it launched with the console, so it's not going to be perfect. So I don't see what the big deal is. I think the big deal is that Sony lied or something. Like people are making out that Sony lied, but I don't see it as lying because the game still is 1080p, 60 frames. It's just the multiplayer portion of the game where it dips up and down. What do you guys think?
Rich, do you think that Sony actually lied to us? Like, I mean, does it really indicative of that, or does it really even matter?
I would like to say that I do not like the people that come out the woodworks complaining about the Xbox One games not being 1080p. In those regards, I think that they do deserve the backlash because you have to be fair. You can't go and bash the Xbox One, say, well, it's not a powerful system, it doesn't run 720p, and then you go back to a game like this and just try to ignore or cover up the fact that it's not working exactly as advertised. I do have a problem with that. Overall, as I said in the last podcast, I don't care about resolution, but when people are taking shots at one side and praising the other, then I do have something to say about it. And that's what it feels like. Everybody the fanboys out there was making comments about, Xbox One, Xbox 720, that's what they should have called it. That right there, you can't say that. And when something happens with PlayStation, let's forget about it. PlayStation, it doesn't have 60 frames per second. Take for example the Order. The Order is not 60 frames per second. They already said it's going to be 30 frames per second, so they can keep the cinematics and the gameplay integrated. I thought that was fine, but people still had something to say about that as well. So I don't know. Let's ask the real person who is.
Yeah. Speaking of Xbox One, okay,
yeah.
Ed, what are you thinking about this? Because Xbox One's gotten a lot of flack about resolution for the most part. I mean, where do you stand?
I think Others Inc. is a genius. First of all, shout out to him. Second of all, I gotta say, I haven't really been following this whole fiasco thing, but I think the fact that the developers, Guerrilla Games, would allow people to believe that their game ran at a 1080p, 60 frames per second, I think they kind of owe it to their fans to say, hey guys, this is what we did to achieve that. Whether it be upscaling or whatever method they used to reach that 1080p.
They did make a statement. I know that.
Yeah,
but it was a really complicated,
Yeah, it was kind of, not in layman terms, nothing we could understand. But I did read some of that where it's we did this technique to do that. Whereas, when I see, I think it was Wolfenstein: The New Order, I believe that's the name of the game. They said, hey, this game's 1080p, 60 frames per second on Xbox and PS4. Mm-hmm. And what were the first comments? They were saying, but does it run native on Xbox One? Is it native? So now it doesn't matter that it's 1080p. Now it matters that it's native.
It gets a little muddy. In all actuality, for the common person, because if you talk about the hardcore dudes that want every single detail, that want to know what's going on, with their tech and whatnot, I can understand though it's being significant to them. But when you're talking about the masses of people, the general dude that just wants to go and get a nice game, get a game that he's going to enjoy and spend a lot of time with, or just get a good experience out of, are they really going to care about this stuff at all?
I wasn't paying attention, but no.
Nah, the average Joe isn't going to care. I mean, it's only really fanboys and spec heads who care. Like, I mean, PC gamers, like, we have another reason to care because, you know, we're used to getting, like, the best performance with our machines and everything, so we notice the difference. But if you're just, like, a casual gamer and, you know, you just play games on consoles, you're not going to notice any difference at all. Like, you know, just play the game and enjoy it. That's what you spent your money for.
And honestly, that doesn't relate to. I think this whole thing doesn't relate to sales at all. I know some people might say, "Nah, it does," but I don't believe so. I think if anything, the reason a game like Tomb Raider sold more on PlayStation 4 is because PlayStation 4 is cheaper, and therefore, you know, it has an easier entry fee than the Xbox One does. I think. I don't think you know the fact that you know, Watch Dogs, the fact that that's 960p or whatever. I don't think that's gonna determine, you know, what copy people buy.
Alright, that makes sense.
Unless you have both consoles, and even then you're gonna go with what console you prefer.
Exactly.
Yeah, like say you got a multiplayer game and, you know, on one console it's 960p, the other is 1080p. Are you going to get the version that runs at the highest resolution, or are you going to get the one that most of your friends are on?